Hey, I'm Simon Williamson, also known as Tyrant in the Custom Magic community. Today I'm going to go over the custom standard deck Crossing the Frog. I've been testing and tweaking the deck for a long time and have gotten into a place I'm confident in. It's arguably one of the most powerful decks in the format right now and by far my favorite. Crossing the Frog is at its heart an aggro deck with explosive synergy. If you like being proactive, if you like casting a lot of spells in one turn, if you like having way more stats on board than you have any right to, this is the deck for you. First, let's go over the creatures. Aspiring Rascals and Magefire Phoenix are the main payoffs for the deck and what the deck is built to support. They will be responsible for a lot of your kills and even a lot of your stabilization against aggro. Spellmaw Crocodile is the secret best card in the deck. It's not as flashy as some of the others, but even before considering the fact that it's a discard outlet, the Croc does so much work. The card flow enables allows you to recover from a board wipe on its own, especially when paired with cards that journey. Dour Vagrant is a fantastic tool for this deck. Vagrant combined with Crocodile makes your threats do so much more work than they would if they were just creatures with stats and combat keywords. Ranidaphobia is one of the newer includes in the list. It was only added for the sake of being a one-drop and helping the deck curve out. But it being unblockable to grab journeyed cards, or technically being a non-creature spell to flip Rascals has really come in handy sometimes. Master of Ancient Texts is the newest include I'm testing. I added it to make digging, for instance, in sorceries or ETB on tapped lands on critical turns easier, but it does some other incidental things that are nice, like becoming big enough to profitably block 3/3s or being a discard outlet for Magefire Phoenix. Minister of Zealots used to be a 3 of, but one copy got cut for Ranidaphobia and one copy got cut for Master of Ancient Texts. Despite this, Minister is a very potent card, especially against control decks. The haste helps push through damage, and the two bodies are fantastic for grabbing journeyed cards. Don't worry too much about keeping the tokens around most of the time unless you're trying to close the game. A 2/1 and a 1/1 apply pressure well enough on their own. Moving on to non-creatures, Crossing the Fog is about as powerful as it looks. The card draw this provides is invaluable. Gift of the Phoenix, Opt, and Taco's Curiosity are all card-neutral cantrips which do a lot of legwork for flipping Rascals and reanimating Phoenixes. Make Way is a critical spell. Often the board will get gummed up with blockers, and this is a mana-efficient way to let your biggest creatures through. And the Hexproof prevents you from getting shut down by removal. Shock needs no introduction. It clears blockers, kills mana dorks, and pushes through damage. Onto the sideboard. Custom Standard is a very open format, which means that sideboards are usually a little less tuned and tested than they could be, and this is no exception. So take this all with a grain of salt. The burn spells here are fantastic against aggro and only aggro. They should generally replace a few copies of Make Way, all your copies of Ranidaphobia, and some cantrips. Although being less efficient than the other burn spell options, Radiant Reckoning is here to deal with Breaker Cities, a 3/3 vehicle that can really steal the game if left unchecked. Namuzzar's Disciple is just here as an evasive creature to attack and block. Often you only need one copy against aggro though, which is nice. Disciple is also a tool against Crestwater's Ramp. Since you need to get under the deck and Kraken for damage, replacing some spells with Disciple is a welcome increase in threat density. Spell Pierce is your generic anti-control tech. Unless the matchup has a lot of sweepers or removal engines, I don't think you should sideboard more than 2 copies in, as slowing down your proactive game plan is a major cost. Essence Scatter is an experimental sideboard card against Crestwater's Ramp, since some of its stabilizing threats are really punishing if they land. Although Magefire Phoenix might remind you of Arclight Phoenix, Crossing the Frog plays pretty differently than Blue-Red Phoenix in Standard or Modern. Standard Phoenix is a lot slower than this deck, and Modern Phoenix decks have a lot more card velocity and are better at getting more spellcast triggers out of fewer cards. Another custom Standard player, Soul Invictus, put it really well when he said, Develop your board while looking for explosive plays on Crossing the Frog. Your goal with this deck is to beat the opponent down first and exploit Magefire and Rascals second. Much like with Arc-like Phoenix decks, however, sequencing matters a lot. Generally, you want to save your Gift of the Phoenixes for last to see if you can find a Magefire. And unless you have a Rascals on board, crack in with your Spellmaw Crocodile before casting your third spell if you have a Phoenix in the yard, since you might find another Phoenix you can discard. Keep in mind when playing this deck that you only have 8 main discard outlets, and only a small handful of alternative ones. The deck has enough card flow that I've only had an issue dumping a Phoenix once, but it's something to keep in mind when taking certain lines. Frog's ideal meta is full of other linear decks like Crustwater's Ramp and other creature-based aggro decks like RDW. Frog's worst matchups tend to be decks with high density of creature removal. Due to its aggro shell, there aren't any matchups that are awful for Frog, and it's hard to find a meta where it's bad. Some common things people think about when trying to build this deck are adding more instants and sorceries and adding more discard outlets. Neither are really necessary, though. Lowering the creature count or creature quality for the deck is just not worth it. The deck has a lot of card flow and is very good at assembling the pieces it needs. 2 powerful creatures that seem like they should be in the deck and have been in the list at some point or another are Sigmire and Inner Flame Master. Sigmire too often gets himself in danger with 2 toughness, and other threats in the 2 mana slot line up better against removal or have a much higher ceiling. Inner Flame Master is a fantastic card that this deck simply cannot cast often enough. If the mana gets a bit better, I'll definitely try to jam a playset of this card again, though. If you're interested in custom standard, you can find a link to the Discord server in the description. It's a real fun format full of exciting custom cards. I also made a series of promos for this deck, which you can download if you're interested.
My quest was risky, my role was odd. I set out for the mystic golden frog. Oh! It was the stuff of legends, said to give the bearer a glimpse of heaven. Plus it was quite shiny. So for preparation, first I drew a map from my imagination.